So the first game that I want to talk about, we have Alabama taking on Miami. This game is going to be played this Saturday with a 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff. And Alabama, as of right now, is a 18.5-point favorite. Now, this is a really big game for Manny Diaz heading into year 3 as the head coach for Miami. Now, this isn't a must-win game. Like a lot of Hurricane fans out there are trying to say Manny Diaz needs to win this game. Like, I think that's a little bit, of a stretch to say that Manny Diaz needs to win this game. Like, there's a lot of Miami fans out there who always feel like Miami should be competing for a national championship every single year and things like that. And I've been trying to tell people, man, like, there are building blocks to this, okay? Manny Diaz going into year 3, this definitely is a really critical year because when you look at the past couple of Miami head coaches, every single one of them has peaked during year 3. So I'm expecting a really big season out of the Hurricanes this year and Manny Diaz. And in my opinion, this is the most talented team that the Miami Hurricanes have put on the field in a very long time. I think this team is better than the 2017 team that won 10 games and lost to Wisconsin in the Orange Bowl. And when you think about the expectations that people have for that team heading into the season, we knew they were going to be good, but nobody expected that team to be as good as what they were in 2017. And remember, that team wasn't all that great offensively. As a matter of fact, the offensive attack from that year was very average to below average. You were carried by the defense that season. Well, this year, not only are you going to have a great offense with offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley going into year 2, but you also should have a pretty good defense this year. One thing that I think that Miami has in this game that a lot of people aren't talking about is I think that they have the experience factor on their side. And I don't think enough people are talking about that. All I keep hearing is, oh, Nick Saban is really good in opening games and things like that. But nobody's talking about how much experience this Miami Hurricanes team has compared to the Alabama team. Now, Alabama does have a lot of great players on defense who are returning, but on the offensive side of the football, Miami has a lot of veterans that are going to be on the field. You got Derek King at QB. You have a really experienced offensive line. As a matter of fact, you could go out on a limb and say that this is the second best offensive line in the ACC, led by offensive tackle Zion Nelson, who as of right now is projected to be a top 15, top 10 pick in next year's 2022 NFL draft, which is something that the Miami Hurricanes haven't really had all that much of over the last couple of years. The offensive line has always seemed to be an Achilles heel for the Hurricanes. This year, instead of it being a weakness, it actually is a strength. You have a really good group of running backs, Cameron Harris, Rooster. Like, there's a lot of depth in this running back room. So you're going to be looking at this Miami Hurricane offense going against Alabama. This is going to be a really good test, man, because Alabama could have the best defense in all of college football. Like, Alabama's defense is going to be incredibly good. They have a lot of depth at every position. Corner, linebacker, defensive line. So Nick Saban a couple of days ago actually came out and he, talked about Derek King. He talked about what he has to do, what Alabama has to do to get ready for Derek King. And basically he said that Derek King is a really great quarterback. He's really good throwing the football downfield. He's accurate and he's incredibly hard to stop when he gets outside of the pocket. And the biggest concern that a lot of people have about Derek King is going to be, okay, how healthy is he going to be coming from that injury that he sustained a couple of months ago against Oklahoma State in that bowl game? Well, according to reports, Derek King is pretty much close to 100%. So I expect Derek King to have a really big impact in this game. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say Alabama is going to win this game. But when you have a superstar quarterback like Derek King, there's not a game that you don't have a shot to win, okay? And one thing that Miami addressed that was really big for them that they struggled with last year was the talent at wide receiver. Outside of Mike Harley, you didn't really have anybody who was able to step up. You had a lot of inconsistency from the wide receiver position. So how does Miami address that? Well, they go in the transfer portal and they get Charleston Rambo transferred from Oklahoma. So now you have Mike Harley and Charleston Rambo, which is now one of the best wide receiver duos in the ACC right now. So I'm interested to see how this Miami offense is going to match up against that Alabama defense. Alabama has a lot of great corners. You have a really good defensive line, and this offensive line is going to get tested against Alabama's defensive line. And this is just a really good test to see just how far along this offense is, because last year Miami's offense was really good. And you got to take into consideration that this was with, all of the COVID restrictions going on, not really a lot of in-person practices. Brett Lashley was pretty much doing installs via Zoom meetings and whatnot. Now he has a real college football offseason, spring practice, fall camp to really implement what he wants to do with this Miami Hurricanes offense. So this is going to be a really exciting matchup that I'm excited to see. Now, of course, we got to talk about Alabama's offense. Bryce Young, who was a highly touted quarterback coming out of high school, is going to be making his first ever college football debut. Now, there's also a lot of new faces, not only at QB, but also on this whole entire offense, because this offense lost a lot of talent to the NFL. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Alex Leatherwood, a lot of guys went in the first round of this past year's NFL draft, and you're going to have a lot of new faces who a lot of people may not be familiar with, especially at wide receiver. Now, my thing is, okay, what does the Miami defense have to do to, get Bryce Young off guard? And I asked a couple of people about this, and a lot of people kept saying all Miami has to do is get pressure on Bryce Young, get in his face, hit him a couple of times, which all that sounds easy to do, but that's going to be a lot easier said than done, because I don't think enough people actually realize how good of a player Bryce Young is. Bryce Young reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson in terms of what he's able to do when things break down, being able to invade the rush, step up, move around the pocket, and wait and give his wide receivers extra time to get open. So if Miami wants to go ahead and test Bryce Young's skill set right away, then I think a lot of people are going to realize that fairly quickly, that I think the worst thing to do is try to get extra pressure by sending a lot of blitzes on Bryce Young and things like that, because I don't think that's going to vote well for the Hurricanes defense, because I think Bryce Young is at his best when he's under pressure and when he's going against the blitz. He has a very good arm. He's really good when it comes to reading the field. So Miami can go ahead and, send all the pressure they want to, but I actually think that's playing towards Bryce Young's strength. I think what makes him so good and why so many people are really high on him is because he's very good with a lot of traffic coming at him. He's very good under pressure. So if Miami wants to go ahead and do that, go ahead and be my guest, but I don't think that's going to vote too well for Miami, because you go ahead, you send a blitz, and then when he ends up hitting somebody for a 50-yard dot and they're going down the sideline, a lot of people are going to realize Bryce Young is really good under pressure. So I don't think the game plan for trying to make Bryce Young uncomfortable is going to be as easy as what some of you Hurricane fans make it out to be, because like I mentioned, Bryce Young, similar to Russell Wilson, is really good under pressure. So I think the best way to give Bryce Young a hard time in his debut is to, first of all, neutralize the Alabama run game, okay? So if you get rid of the run game and you make Alabama one-dimensional where they have to beat you throwing the football, then I think that's kind of when you can get Bryce Young uncomfortable, because then you can't rely on that run game, which then takes away from play action. So therefore, you keep Bryce Young in the pocket and you make sure that when the play breaks down, that he has nowhere else to go, that he has no running lanes to escape, which is going to be a lot easier said than done. But my biggest thing for Bryce Young is I don't want him getting outside of the pocket. I want to keep Bryce Young in the pocket. I want him to beat me from inside, because you allow him to get outside the pocket and you allow him to extend those plays, that's where a lot of things are going to go awry. So if you're Miami, you want to see if you can get pressure from your front four, which is another big interesting thing that we have to talk about, is going to be how's the pass rush for Miami going to look this year, because you lost Jalen Phillips, who got drafted in the first round by Miami, and you lost Quincy Roche. So you lost your two best pass rushers. How is the pass rush going to look this year for Miami? Now, Miami has always been pretty good when it comes to developing pass rushers, so I'm just eager to see what are going to be the next group of guys who are going to be able to make their presence felt when it comes to being able to get after the quarterback this year for Miami. Now, could Alabama's offense start out slow? And I know people aren't talking about this, but Miami's defense also returns a good amount of talent this year outside of the defensive line. The secondary has a lot of experience. Linebackers should be improved. So you're looking at the Miami Hurricanes defense that should be pretty solid this year. So if you're Alabama, I don't really think that this is just going to be a game that you're just going to sit here and just pick everybody apart, this and that, because Miami's defense has a lot of talent, and not only that, but a lot of experience also. So it's going to be really interesting seeing, a new Alabama, I won't say new Alabama offense, but new faces in the Alabama offense going against an experienced Miami Hurricane defense with a lot of veterans. Now, Miami's wide receivers are going to be a huge factor in determining and deciding the outcome of this game, because wide receiver was a huge weakness for Miami. I believe it was the biggest reason why Miami lost against Clemson. I understand the offensive line didn't play great that game, but the wide receivers had a hard time creating separation in that matchup against Clemson, and Derrick King was trying to escape, but Clemson was kind of clamping down the running lanes that Derrick King had. So this year, you look at the improved wide receiving core and the depth that Miami has, I want to see these wide receivers be able to create separation. I think that's going to be my biggest concern. If you're a Hurricane fan, it's going to be how these wide receivers are going to do against a really good Alabama secondary. Now, I know somebody's going to be like, well, you need to attack whoever's going to be replacing Patrick Surtain, which, okay, you can do that all you want to, but I mean, Alabama has a lot of great players at cornerback. So I think that wide receiver definitely is going to be a really important position to watch in determining if Miami's going to be able to pull off the big upset against Alabama week 0, because wide receiver last year was a big weakness that costed Miami a lot of games. So if wide receiver is going to be as good as what I think it should be with Mike Harley and Charleston Rambo, and they're able to create separation, I think that's going to vote well for the passing game. And on top of that, I think we could see a lot of big plays over the top against a really good but aggressive Alabama defense there. Now, will Miami's run defense struggle against Alabama's running game, which should be led by running back Brian Robinson? Brian Robinson, didn't really hear a lot of his name called because he was behind Najee Harris, but he's going to be the next man up. We know how good Alabama is when it comes to producing great running backs, so Brian Robinson is next in that stable, and I think that Brian Robinson is going to be really productive. He's really good fighting off tacklers, good running through contact, he hits the hole really hard, and Miami's run defense last year was a little bit iffy, okay, especially when you go back and you watch that North Carolina game. And no, I have not gotten that North Carolina game out of my head, and I don't think nobody else should have neither, because that was an absolute terrible game. There was poor linebacking play. You had linebackers who were in the wrong positions at times. They were missing holes. Not only were they missing holes, but they were missing tackles. Like, there was just a lot of things that went around that North Carolina game. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, okay, JT, that's last year. What about this season? Well, I'm still concerned, okay, because I'm not completely sold on a linebacker position for Miami when it comes to how these linebackers are going to be against the run. So if you're looking at Alabama and you're looking at a weakness to attacking that Miami Hurricanes defense, it definitely has to be the linebackers. So for me, if you're Nick Saban, if you can get that run game going early and you can get your offensive linemen to that second level, to that linebacking core of Miami, then I think you can have a good way of trying to keep Derrick King off the field. You can keep him off the field by controlling time possession. And on top of that, you tire out that defense, and then if you get a couple of stops here and there, maybe a turnover to go your way or something like that, then this game definitely is going to be tilted in towards your favor. And I think it's going to be really important that that run game gets going for Alabama, because when you have a young quarterback in Bryce Young, I don't think Alabama just wants to go ahead and just force him into, the action. I think they kind of want to ease him into it. I don't think Alabama wants to get Bryce Young throwing, passes his first couple of attempts. I don't think they want to air it out quite yet with Bryce Young. I think what they want to do is they kind of want to ease him into it, open things up the run game, get play action going, use some RPOs, use some read options, and then they want to try to open things up downfield. You also have a new group of wide receivers also, aside from John Mechie. So when you look at the experience that Miami has defensively, I don't think enough people are talking about that. Everybody's talking about how great Alabama's defense is, how much experience they have, but nobody's talking about the experience that Miami has also. Miami also is a team that has a lot of starters returning from last year. So when you look at the whole dynamic of, Nick Saban, really good week 0, like I think a lot of people have to understand something. A lot of people keep saying Alabama's going to win this game simply because they're Alabama and things like that. And that's kind of like a dumbass reason for predicting the winner of a game by the brand. Like if we were just going off brands and the logo on the side of your helmet or whatnot, then we would have the same teams in the college football playoffs year after year after year. If there was a time for Alabama to lose and get upset, this would definitely be the perfect time for that, because this is week 0. You have a lot of new faces on offense. You have a quarterback who's never started a college football game before, and you're going against a really talented Miami Hurricanes team. As a matter of fact, the best team that Miami has put on the field in damn near 2 decades. So if you're going to come out here and tell me Miami doesn't have a shot, I kind of want to say, I don't know. I think Miami has a better chance of winning this game than what 80% of you guys out there believe. Because if this was a game that was being played in the middle of the season or in the later half of the season, absolutely, I believe that Miami will have a legitimate chance of probably losing this game by 3 scores. But this is a game that's being played week 0. This is the first game that both these two teams are going to have. When you have an Alabama team that's replacing a lot of guys who went to the NFL, you're going to have a lot of new faces in there. Meanwhile, you have a Miami team that has a lot of veterans coming back. I kind of think that there is a better chance of an upset than what a lot of you guys are expecting. And most of the upsets that take place come week 0, week 1, the start of the college football season, because you have some things that are rusty. But there is a reason why Nick Saban is really good at these week 0 games, and that's because he normally has his team prepared to play. But at the same time, there is a good dynamic out there that maybe Alabama's offense comes out rusty. Maybe Miami gets a couple of turnovers early from Bryce Young, and that could definitely dictate the outcome of this game. So I think that this is a really good chess match to watch in this game. You have 2 experienced defenses. You have the experienced offense of Miami with the Eric King going against the Alabama defense. And you have the experienced defense for Miami that's going against a very young Alabama offense with a lot of new faces in there. So the team I'm going to take to win this game, I'm going to take Alabama. The reason why I'm going to take Alabama is simply for the fact that I think Miami can keep this game close. But I think that we're going to see the reason why Nick Saban is so good in these, start of the season games is because I think he's going to be able to make some adjustments. He's going to be able to tweak some things. And I don't really know if Manny Diaz right now is going to be able to keep up with the coaching that Nick Saban and that staff is going to have. And don't get me wrong, I think Manny Diaz as of right now is a solid head coach. But I just think that we're going to see Nick Saban kind of put on a coaching clinic against Manny Diaz, and Manny Diaz also is going to have a big say in terms of what the defense is going to do this year. So I think there's going to be a lot of adjusting on the fly for Nick Saban, and I think that overall this game could be tight. But heading into the 4th quarter, I think that that's where we're going to see Alabama break away. So I think that Alabama is going to win this game. 34-24 is my final score prediction in this game. I don't think Miami's going to lose by like 3 touchdowns. As a matter of fact, I would be extremely surprised if Miami lost this game by 3 or more touchdowns. I think if Miami's going to lose, I think they lose by 10. So I'm definitely going to take Miami with the under. If I was betting on this game, okay, I don't think Alabama's going to cover, simply for the fact that I think Alabama's offense could start out a little bit rusty. I don't think enough people are giving the defense of Miami enough credit. Okay, everybody just thinks Alabama's offense is just going to come in this game and they're just going to pick off where they left off last year. I don't think that's going to be the case. Also, I think there's going to be a little bit of rust there, and you have a very good team with a lot of veteran experience there at every position. So for me, I think Miami will lose, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout like a lot of people are expecting it to be. I think Miami's going to lose this game by 10 points. And if this game does end up being a blowout in favor of Alabama, then This Alabama team is going to be extremely scary because this is a very solid Miami Hurricanes team. This is the best team that Miami has put on the field in a very long time.